The Puck Portfolio with Andy McNeil.
Hey, welcome to the Puck Portfolio for Wednesday, March 26th. I'm your host, Andy McNeil. Joining me, as always, is Nick Martin from DFO. Nick, how you doing, man?
I'm doing good. Yeah, not a bad night for the show there yesterday. I was down a little on another overtime loss from the Caps, but yeah, don't even know what to say about that situation anymore. But yeah, I think we got a pretty good slate here.
Yeah, no, I didn't have a great night. Did hit both of my shot props pretty easily as Pavel Dorofeev and who was the other? God, Brandon Hagel. Both finished with 4 shots, well over the 2.5 totals. But yeah, unfortunately, the Caps did not come through. The over did not get there, and the Montreal Canadiens had a pretty bad night against the St. Louis Blues, so I did not get the overtime I was looking for in that game. Of course, the Canadiens still holding on to that second wildcard spot in the Eastern Conference with 75 points, 70 games played. But the New York Rangers and the New York Islanders and the Columbus Blue Jackets and the Detroit Red Wings are all kind of right behind them. But more specifically, the Islanders and the Rangers just 1 point behind the Habs right now. And the Islanders are in action tonight against the Vancouver Canucks. The Canucks also trying to get back in the playoff picture here. They have 78 points right now, 2 games in hand on the St. Louis Blues. But they are currently 5 points back of the Blues for that second wildcard spot in the Western Conference. You're covering this game maybe a little bit later if you haven't got it up already at Canucks Army. How do you see this one from a betting perspective?
Yeah, I like the tie in this game. We've played it a lot, in the Islanders this year. It's been a good play on Canucks games recently. It's out there at plus 309 on Pinnacle. And I think all of the reasons that we've seen both these teams have a lot of overtime games recently. The Isles have had overtime in 4 of the last 6. Canucks have had it in 3 of the last 7. I think a lot of the narratives that have caused that are still in play here. Can't really see in this spot with so much on the line, either team pulling away by much. I think if the Islanders get a lead, we've seen how much they like to go into a shell. They continue to blow a ton of leads. We talked about how the controversial Palmieri goal kind of screwed them, or disallowed goal kind of screwed them on Monday. But I think the other part of the story, they did have a 2-goal lead over an offense that has been horrible and blew it. And we've seen that a lot. We've also seen the Canucks come from behind a lot here. So I think it could be an interesting game to consider betting the Canucks live at long numbers if they get down. And you see the Islanders kind of packing it in. Because I think more than any other team we've seen the last 2 years, they've had the most blown multi-goal leads. And I think there's a reason why. They just pack it in. It doesn't seem like they have any interest in playing at the other end once they get up a goal or two. And I think maybe it's a little in their heads now. So I think with the guys out of the lineup for the Canucks, with Peterson out, Hoglander out, Hedel out, the playing field's a little leveled. I think if you look at the analytics recently, the Canucks have actually been the better team. The Isles have just kind of been getting some wins because Sorokin started to get going here. But I think in time, those losses are going to hurt. And I think we'll see close score lines throughout this one. So, yeah, I think it's a pretty good spot here to try and catch another tie long shot.
Yeah, the current number at Pinnacle Sports, Vancouver, minus 107, so small favorite. Pretty much a pick 'em at Pinnacle right now with the Canucks at minus 107, the Islanders at minus 103. The total definitely shaded to the under, minus 136, over 5.5. Plus 121, and the regulation draw plus 307, as you would expect with such a tightly matched or 2 tightly matched teams. The other early game here on Wednesday, New Jersey and Chicago. Obviously, the Devils a significantly sized favorite, minus 204. Definitely not what you would expect to see the Devils price like against the second worst team in the NHL, but obviously the Devils have not been playing good hockey as of late, and they're without their 2 of their top stars right now in Jack Hughes and Dougie Hamilton. So not really much to say about this one from a betting perspective. I don't know about you.
Yeah, for me, it's just the Blackhawks or pass. I think that you've just seen how bad the Devils have been recently. Their offensive upside's not great. Their defense has been a lot worse. We've talked about Jonas Siegenthaler also being out of the mix, and I think that's starting to hurt them. So yeah, I think don't need to dwell on this one too long, but I wouldn't see much interest in laying that kind of price with the Devils right now.
Yeah, and the Boston Bruins in action against the Anaheim Ducks. The Ducks actually, grading out kind of better than the Bruins in some areas here. They've got a slightly better expected goal share at 5-on-5 over the last month. Better goal share at 5-on-5. They've scored considerably more goals on a per 60-minute basis than Boston has. But yeah, the Bruins are just they're tanking, whether they mean to or not. Best thing for the organization. Let me just say that. But they are not looking good right now. Finishing up this California road trip after a 3-1 loss to the San Jose Sharks, a 7-2 blowout loss at the hands of the LA Kings, and now facing a Ducks team in which they are, I don't think anybody would have guessed they'd be an underdog on the road versus Anaheim this season. But that's where they're at right now. The Ducks minus 125 on the money line, Boston plus 113.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. But like you said, this is exactly what the Bruins want. And whether they're tanking or not, they were pretty awful before they shipped everyone out at the deadline. So I don't think it's very surprising now that these are the results because they weren't much better when everyone was there. And I do have another stack that I like in this game. They've been pretty good to us. We caught Cousins and Batherson at a good number last night. I think McTavish and Zegras each to get a point at plus 190 is worth a bet. And if you can't play it that way, you could either split the stake between each of them to get a point, or I think specifically Zegras to get a point at minus 105 is a good bet. I think he's starting to look a little better offensively. He's got 8 points in the last 11 games. Playing alongside McTavish, playing on the top power play. We've kind of seen Cronin's gutted that entire offense. I think Zegras more than anyone else. This little run from him might even just be boosting his trade stock for when he probably does get dealt. But I do think that you can kind of see he's starting to get a little bit of confidence back in his game offensively. Starting to make some really good passes in the offensive zone. So I think playing the Bruins, who've been horrible defensively, we've talked about it a lot. I think this is a pretty good number to try and back Zegras' little return to form here.
Yeah, he's been hot since January 23rd. Let me just see. He has 5 goals, 9 assists in 20 games going back to the 23rd of January. So he's been pretty consistent. Scoring every other game and a lot more consistent as of late. So yeah, I like that look as well. But our marquee matchup here tonight in the NHL, the Dallas Stars and the Edmonton Oilers. Of course, the Oilers returning from a 3-day break after last playing on Saturday. They played their first game ever without McDavid and Draisaitl in the lineup at the same time. And they got past the Kraken 5-4. It was a pretty good effort from the Oilers. They didn't dominate by any means, but they controlled the game, at least from a shot attempt perspective at 5-on-5. They got some pretty good performances out of their depth scorers. Adam Henrique scored his first goal since March 1st. Jeff Skinner scored for the second game in a row. That's 3 goals in the last 2 games for Skinner. Zach Hyman also extended his point streak to 3 games with an assist, but it was Ryan Nugent-Hopkins stealing the show with a hat trick performance. He now has 4 goals and 5 assists in his last 4 games. So Nuge has really picked things up over this last little bit. The lines played all right. Kind of wondering what you would get out of the Oilers without McDavid and Draisaitl. The top line, I guess you could call it, of Hopkins, Nugent Hopkins, Vasily Podkolzin, and Victor Arvidsson was pretty good. They controlled 59% of the shot attempts and owned more than 75% of the expected goals at 5-on-5, according to Natural Stat Trick. Played about 11 minutes in total at 5-on-5. Skinner, Janmark, and Brown was also pretty good 64% of the shot attempts, nearly 57% of the expected goals. But you kind of have to think they need a more of a 4-line effort here tonight against the Dallas Stars. Obviously, Dallas hasn't been playing all that great over the last little bit, and they, it shows. They haven't looked good at 5-on-5. I mean, they've controlled just 45% of the expected goals, which ranks 26th, and 47% of the shot attempts, which is 21st since acquiring Rantanen at the trade deadline. It's only an 8-game sample, but I mean, I think it is pretty kind of telling of where this team is at right now and what they've got to clean up heading into the playoffs. They do have the best record in the NHL dating back to January 24th, 16-4-3. But like I said, since making that big splash at the trade deadline, I think things haven't been quite as good as they would have expected. They have won 2 in a row, but they played 500 hockey since the trade deadline, going 4-4. So one thing though, it's not just Rantanen. I think it's fair to say that it's not just Rantanen right now that's kind of quiet offensively. You look at the other top players. I mean, including Rantanen, they've got 4 guys who have 25 plus goals this season: Jason Robertson, Rupe Hintz, and Wyatt Johnson. And those guys have combined for just 5 goals since the trade deadline in 8 games. So it's not like it's all on Rantanen here by any means. Thomas Harley, he actually leads the way over the last 8 games with 4 goals and 8 points in 8 games. So he's continuing his pace, but they've been getting great goaltending. I mean, Jake Ottinger's been good. But Casey DeSmith has been really good. I don't know who's going to start tonight. I'm not sure if they've announced anything yet. Last I checked, they hadn't. But this Ottinger, he's coming off a shutout against the Wild. Stopped all 32 shots he faced. But DeSmith, I mean, he is 10-2-1 since the start of December, 2.18 goals against average, and a .927 save percentage. So he's kind of emerging as one of the best backups in the NHL right now. And that's a good thing for the Stars. I think it doesn't hurt to have 2 goalies going heading into the playoffs. But yeah, I think we're both kind of aligned here on what we think of this game. I mean, the Stars originally opened as a much bigger favorite. -138 was the opening price at Pinnacle. It has moved around quite a bit. I mean, earlier this morning we were talking about Dallas on the money line at -127, which seemed really short. It's kind of ticked back up now at -132. We locked it in at -127 earlier this morning. And I guess you would agree that they're still a pretty good bet at -132, you think?
Yeah, I mean, I was willing to bet them at worse numbers yesterday. I thought it was a good look, as I noted. Actually moved the other way. I know Draisaitl was at the morning skate today. And yeah, to kind of keep bragging on the Stars, I can see a little bit of the number. Defensively, their metrics have fallen off pretty bad here. That right side with Ceci and Dumba is pretty terrible. But I also think you look at the strengths of the team. There's still a pretty good case for them being a bigger favorite against the Oilers without McDavid. You talked about the goaltending, whether it's been Ettinger or DeSmith. They're 7th in save percentage this month. I think they would continue to get at least that out of Ettinger and maybe DeSmith. Who knows? He's been that good all year. So yeah, I think they have a pretty big edge in goal. And I think you look at the offensive upside further down the lineup, they have a lot more high-end offensive threats down there. So I can see the price a little bit, I guess. The Oilers have actually kind of been defending better, at least statistically. They're just not getting nearly as good of goaltending. But I think if you kind of look at the totality of the 2 rosters right now, I'm not really seeing this price. I think it's a pretty good spot to back Dallas, even if they do, maybe have some more flaws than some of the other complete cup favorites. I still think it's a good number here. And the other one I do like is, basing it a lot off Saturday's game, and if Draisaitl plays, I guess it shakes things up a little bit. But Nugent Hopkins is at +158 to get 3 shots. I think that's a pretty good look with just coming off that last game versus Seattle. He had 5 shots on goal, 9 attempts. And he's obviously become much more the focal point of the offense. You talked about how he's just been much better overall. even just before Nugent Hopkins and Draisaitl got injured. And I think we'll just see him play huge minutes and get a lot more touches on the power play again tonight. So I think at plus 158, you're getting a pretty good number to buy into that one game sample of the, how it might look without McDavid and Draisaitl, and see if he can have another big night. And he did skate 23 minutes in that game. And I think we'll probably see him play pretty huge minutes again tonight, even if it is just McDavid that ends up sidelined. So I think that's a prop worth looking at there.
Yeah, I've got a player prop that I like in this one too. Thomas Harley to go over 0.5 points. It is minus 120 at several sports books, including Bet365. I think you look around and Pinnacle has this one priced at minus 138. So there's just an edge just simply based on that. Pinnacle, typically a sharper sports book, and at minus 120, I think is a really good price for a guy in Harley who has been really good as of late. I talked about it a little bit, how good he's been since the trade deadline. But he's been really good overall. You go back to the end of January, and he is where's he at here? He's got 8 goals and 14 assists in his last 20 games, and he's tallied at least a point in 14 of the last 20 games. I mean, I think you could even look at him. I think the price was plus 425 to get 2+ points over at Bet365. I don't think that's an outrageous bet or an unreasonable ask by any means. He's had, I think, 7 multi-point games over this last 20-game stretch, but I like him at minus 120 to get at least 1 point tonight against the Oilers.
Yeah, I love it. You've been hitting on that one a lot, and it's definitely been good to us, so I'm happy to stick with it. I do feel like the Stars should have a solid offensive night. The last time these teams met, it was, what did it finish at, 6-5 or 6-4?
It was 5-4.
Yeah, so that was...
Edmonton got out to an early lead, 4-1 lead, and then kind of got a little bit sleepy in the latter part of the game, and the Stars came back with 3 goals, but that was as close as they got. So, yeah, that one finished 5-4. Dallas beat Edmonton earlier this season, I think back on October 19th, 4-1 at home. So, the Stars have had no problem putting up goals on the Oilers so far this year.
Yeah, I guess that's it. 4 games, nice and quick. I think tomorrow's slate looks good. I guess I might as well throw out there too. I think it's going to be, I don't see who would ever bet the Preds at this number. So the one bet that I like tomorrow, the Blues opened at minus 120 on the rec books, minus 122 on FanDuel, minus 120 on DraftKings. I think anything better than minus 135 is a good play. I think we'll see that one move heavily. The Blues, we've talked about a lot. They're playing so good. Their analytics are great. Their offense has been great. They're, I think, bringing a good physical edge, getting solid goaltending. And the Preds continue to just be one of the most overvalued teams in the league. They had a good win over the Leafs. They managed to beat the Hurricanes last night, which was kind of just one of those Canes nights where nothing went in and it was just everything the Preds did went right. But I'm not really worried that they're on some, last gasp heater here or anything. And I think that number is just way too short. So given that I can't see anyone pushing back really until the Preds number rises a lot, I think that's a good one to lock in right now.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. I think that's a really good price here at open to back the Blues against a Preds team that they have they've beat up a bit here this season. So, and just recently defeated the Preds 4-1. So I like that one as well. But yeah, that pretty much does it for today's episode of the Puck Portfolio. Thanks for joining us today. We'll be back on Thursday at 1 p.m. Eastern Time. Right here on the DFO Fantasy and Betting YouTube channel. Stay tuned for an episode of Future Files coming up later today on YouTube. And until then, good luck with your bets and gamble responsibly.